So here we are again, the Democratic Party freaking out, being hypocrites over the Republicans doing the exact same thing the Democrats are notorious for, gerrymandering. They have pushed it to a whole new level. They're freaking out over Governor Abbott redistricting some of the districts in Texas. And have you seen an Illinois map or all of New England? Let's go with New England, because at least in Illinois there are some representation for the Republican Party. Nothing on the New England map. That's multiple states. It's all Democratic districts, and that's impossible, especially this last election. Trump won 48% of that region's votes. But where are they at? Where's the representation on the map? It doesn't exist. So once again, hypocrisy. And this is, turnabout's fair play. And I'm not saying it's right, because it isn't at all. The gerrymandering is wrong no matter who's doing it. That's really the point of all of this. But you can't help but just sit back and find humor in how this is playing out. So in this next clip, we get to see Shannon Bream put Kathy Hochul on the spot and watch, as most politicians do, they like to tiptoe, tap dance around their questions. They do like to do a lot of redirects, or, pay no attention to the hand over here. Look at this, what's going on over here? Or flat out deny. And they constantly change the rules. So let's just go ahead and jump on in here, shall we?
They govern a district's contiguousness that the state's Democrat-dominated Court of Appeals threw it out. The New York Times at the time called those maps comically contorted. That's their quote. So your state's highest court at the time, all the judges appointed by Democratic governors, they threw the maps out. So fair to say Democrats have done what they're now accusing Republicans of doing.
No, we followed the rules. We do it every 10 years. We base it on census.
But the court said you didn't follow the rules.
Well, we did follow the rules.
So the court was wrong?
Well, we followed the rules. And we didn't intend to do this again until the 2032 elections. But because we're in a different situation altogether that demands that leaders stand up and say, I'm not going to let our democracy be eroded away because there's a blatant power grab to maintain power in our nation's capital. This is what I call
this is where I have to interject, because she's talking about a blatant power grab. I mean, that's exactly what transpired with Biden opening the border like he did. There was no other reason. No other president has ever done that with such a mass influx of immigrants. And I have no problem with immigrants being in this country at all. I've worked alongside people, south of the border, Mexicans and people from Brazil, South America, stuff like that, Central America. Grew up, working in hay fields and working in tobacco patches. Cut your teeth on as a teenager. In the part of the country that I grew up in, West Kentucky. So, talking about a blatant power grab, and it's a threat to democracy. They always like to do that. They always like to say it's these buzzwords or phrases to get people all fired up, who are all just governed by their emotions. And it's absurd. It's always a blatant power grab. It's never not that. And the Democrats, I'm not sitting here defending the Republicans 100% and like they're, coming up, smelling like roses all the time, especially, and not even Trump. I'm going to call balls and strikes no matter who you are. But the problem I have with the Democratic Party is they're not democratic at all. They don't give a shit. They don't care about democracy. They care about their slice of the pie. That's what both sides care about, their slice of the pie. And they just lie. Hypocrisy run amok. You know, that's the biggest problem I have, is that our nation's capital is nothing but a shit show, and it is 10 times worse than it's ever been.
Legal insurrection. Legal insurrection. Just let the rules stay the way they are. We'll do it the way we always have. But here we have Texas, and now going to other states. J.D. Vance, why aren't you looking out for how to lower costs like you promised? Instead, he's going like a lapdog around the country to different states saying, oh, can we pick up some here? Can we pick up some here? Because they know they're going to lose next year. That's the only reason they're engaging this. And also might be a nice distraction from people asking, all of a sudden this happens when they refuse to release the Epstein files. So I, along with a lot of people in New York, are saying, what's that all about? Is this just another red herring? So no one's buying this. Just Texas, knock it off. We'll knock it off. And let's get back to governing. But you want to play these games? We're not going to sit on the sidelines. We're New Yorkers. We fight back.
Okay. You mentioned.
Let me ask you, how can gerrymandering both be a threat to democracy and also the way to save it?
Well, there's no question that gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. It allows politicians to pick their voters as opposed to citizens choosing their representatives. But we are now in a situation where we find ourselves where authoritarian moves are being made by the White House through various states, Texas most prominent among them, and there has to be a response to that. What I've said is that we have to protect our democracy now if we ultimately want to be able to save it. And so taking the reasonable steps that have been proposed.
Look, you know, there it is again. You know, protect our democracy. They don't care about the democracy. They don't care about that aspect. They care about power and control. You know, I love hearing them talk about how they need to stop playing by the rules when they primarily don't play by the rules. They pretend to do so. And then they create this contrived catastrophic event and redirect and finger point. And literally what they're doing is projecting 99% of the time. This is what they do. It's 100% factual, quantifiable. There are the receipts everywhere for how they run their party, and they are not the party of democracy. Look what happened, you know, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There was nothing democratic about that. There was no primary. The people didn't choose Kamala. She was thrust upon them. And people were made to feel like shit if they didn't vote for a black woman. That's absurd. I don't give a damn what you look like or what gender you are or what genitalia is between your legs. Doesn't matter to me. It shouldn't matter to anybody, period. But that's what they keep pushing. It's a constant. That's why the Democratic Party's failing. That's why they have failed. Religiously failed. It's all about identity. It's all about victimhood, victim stance, and Trump is Hitler. I mean, that's all they've got, and and 99% of it is bullshit. They run on bullshit. That's the Democratic Party, and they need to change their name because they are not democratic.
Posed in California, I think it makes a great deal of sense in this moment, a temporary way in which to respond to that which is happening in Texas, with the thought that after this crisis has passed, we get back to the fight against gerrymandering by any.
So yeah, there you have it. You know, it's it's continuing to get worse, you know, and there is no accountability at all from in any regards to this. You know, the old adage, two wrongs don't make a right, most assuredly applies here. And I wish things could be fair. I wish these people could play by the rules, all of them. So in this next clip is J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance on Maria Bartiromo's, hope I'm not butchering her name. I said Shannon Bream's name wrong. I said Breen. My apologies. But you have him on the show here throwing out some statistics, some he's showing up with receipts because apparently the census in 2020 was way off and they were counting illegal immigrants, which should not be the case. They're not legal residents of this country. Their vote should not count, period. That's probably going to upset some people, but I don't care because that's just how it should be. If you're not legally a citizen of a country, you should get no say-so in who runs it. Period. So there's that. Here we go.
Yeah, so another crazy thing that I had no idea about, but everybody, even Democrats actually admit this, that the census in 2020 had a major statistical error. And what that meant is that you actually undercounted a few states that are Republican, like Florida and Ohio. You overcounted some blue states. And so what I understand, if you actually did the census anew right now, you would have 10 additional Republican seats and 9 fewer Democrat seats. And really what we're living with, Maria, is the consequence of 40 years of institutional control in the Democratic Party. These guys have fought very dirty for a very long time, and they haven't just won elections and enacted laws that we may not agree with. They have tried to rig the game for Democrats and against Republicans. And thankfully, under President Trump's leadership, you finally see some spine. You finally see some backbone in the Republican Party to fight back against these very aggressive Democratic dirty tricks. But the only way for us to do it is to actually go and do the hard work to reset the scales a little bit. What we want to do is redo the census, but importantly, we want to redistrict some of these red states, and we want to make the congressional apportionment fair in this country. Again, you cannot do it unless Republicans actually take some very decisive action in the months to come. We think they will, and we're obviously supporting them every step of the way.
And see, that's the thing that I'm all about fairness too, but I mean, if you're gerrymandering, you're gerrymandering. So it's how do you do something that's wrong and it should be illegal, to try to make stuff right. But like I said, turnabout's fair play. You have it's tit for tat with both of the main parties, Republican and Democrats. Just, I mean, when's enough? Cutting off your nose to spite your face, anymore is what they do. It's pointless. It's absolutely pointless. It gets us nowhere. It creates bigger rifts. This country I've never seen so divided in my lifetime. I've never seen it this divided as it is now. It's a shame. It's a travesty.
Do you worry that as Republicans do that, the Democrat blue states are going to do the same thing, and then you'll have redistricting in California, New Jersey, and so on?
There's just not a whole lot of juice left out of that lemon. The Democrats have already gone as far as they possibly can. Let me give you crazy statistics. So I believe that it's in New Jersey, Illinois, New York, California, and there's one other Democrat state where you take those 5 states, you have a large number of Democrat representatives. But here's the crazy statistic. President Trump won 43% of those 5 states. Okay. And Democrats have something like 85% of the representatives out of those states. You cannot gerrymander these far left states anymore. And that's the whole point. We have unilaterally disarmed in the Republican Party. We have said to the Democrats, if you want to rig the game in your favor in blue states, go ahead. We're going to do nothing to fight back against it. That's crazy. It makes it harder for us to pass our agenda. It makes it harder for us to win elections. And most importantly, it gives Democrats this ability to run roughshod over the country without any pushback from the American people. The democratic system in this country is broken because who you vote for doesn't necessarily get reflected in who your representatives are. We're just trying to rebalance the scales and, frankly, push back against a very unfair system created by the Democrats.
So exactly, there's nothing that it is an unending loop with these people. You know, it's a shame, you know, that we have to bear witness to the absolute tearing down of, this is just getting stupid. I'm going to have to fucking edit that out. I wonder how he does that where he... That ain't it.
This happens every now and then where Republicans basically do the playbook that Democrats have been running for a while, and then Democrats go, wait, you're not supposed to do that. Only we're supposed to do that. Now we're going to leave our elected state and evade the democratic process in order to thwart you using these tools that are at your disposal. Even the New York Times reported or admitted that Democrats have little to fight back with on the gerrymandering front because they have gerrymandered their states so extensively, Chicago being a great example, Illinois being a great example, which is where they fled, that they can't actually do anything to compete against this. So I would just say that this is once again a bit of a tantrum, and the people who they represent should require them to be in their state to do their jobs.
No matter the party, this is the whole gerrymandering thing is not it's not the way to go. Complaining about what one side is doing while you turn around and do it too is just, it makes you a hypocrite. I don't care which one you are, which side you're on. But at the same time, if it's unfair, if the balance is to be brought back, how do you do that? How do you do that when allegedly the game is rigged? You know, there's definitely no simple answer, because what it boils down to is power and control and who wants it more. That's all that matters. That's all that matters in Washington. It used to be by the people, for the people, and it's not anymore. It has been for a long time. When it comes down to it, it's whose pockets are getting lined, what's in it for them, and what can they get out of us. That's how I feel. I felt that way for a while now. It didn't used to be like that. It used to be this bad. But this is just progressively getting worse. And eventually someone's going to have to take the reins, step up and be a straight shooter 100%. If that's even possible when it comes to politics. Who knows? But either way, there's still aspects of it. It's highly entertaining. So, you have to look at it from that perspective too, because if not, it's going to drive you insane. But tell me what you think, because I'm always interested in knowing. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, let your heart drive you and your mind guide you. Thank you.